Good morning, everyone. Election 43 is underway. It's happening right now. And I wanted to do one final Maxime Bernier Twitter roundup because, well, I think these are important and I've been doing them for a very long time. This is one of my longest running segments because, well, it was last year, more than a year ago, August of 2018, when Mr. Bernier left the Conservative Party of Canada and started on this journey, on this journey of leadership. And this is where we are now. And I think that there's a lot to say, right? A lot to say and a lot to talk about with regard to that whole journey. And this is the culmination of that journey, the fastest growing political party in the history of the country. That's incredible. That's an incredible feat. And if we win one seat today, then it will all have been worth it. Because the ideas got shared. Because people were allowed to speak about their ideas, despite being smeared, despite paid for smears by both the Liberals, the Conservatives, the Greens, by probably the same person. Still, the ideas were shared. People like me were able to stand up in local debates and say, these ideas are important to include in the conversation. If we only win one seat, it will have all been worth it. Because that's important. It's important to note what's happened over the course of this election. It's important to note the freedom of speech has fundamentally been, the definition of this has fundamentally been changed in Canada. You do not have freedom of speech or freedom to gather and speak about things you find important in this country if you think certain things. And that has been borne out again and again. Silence from our leaders, from the Prime Minister himself, silence from the Conservative Party leader about Antifa standing in the way of an elderly woman trying to cross the road. Your freedoms of speech, your freedoms generally, are being eroded in this country. And that's worth talking about too. Your freedom to freely, democratically choose who you want to represent you without having that whole campaign be about made up scandals. That's been laid bare in this election. That's happened. Wearing blackface at 29 years old as a teacher at an elite academy does not disqualify you as a candidate for the Liberal Party of Canada. That's good to know. Neither does firing your attorney general when she won't play ball. Neither does saying that you agree with the findings of the ethics commissioner. Neither does presiding over a genocide, apparently. So these are all interesting things that have happened in the last year. And I think that all of these things are worth talking about. And so Mr. Bernier made that possible, because without him, none of that would have happened. The conversations themselves wouldn't have taken place. The attempts to smear wouldn't have happened. It's very interesting what is happening in this country. It is very interesting the institutions and the unions and other organizations that are coming together to silence anybody who disagrees, anybody who's got a dissenting view. I'm a person who likes politics, and I don't just watch Canadian politics. I watched what happened to Judge Kavanaugh. I'm watching what's happening in Paris, and I'm watching what's happening in London. And all of this bears talking about in our politics. And it's not being spoken about. But thanks to Mr. Bernier, it is. A little bit more. There's a pushback. And our institutions, like the debate commissioner, while ultimately relenting and allowing Mr. Bernier to participate, they monkeyed with it to the extent where there were news outlets that were uninvited from covering a public debate. And they had to go to trial in order to stand up for their rights to a free press. And that's happening in this country. And that wouldn't have been brought to light necessarily if Mr. Trudeau and Mr. Scheer got their way. There are so many things that happened in this past year that have been notable. And the polls haven't moved. Scandal after scandal after scandal. It's crazy that Blackface Trudeau or SNC Lavalin Scandal Trudeau didn't have any impact on the polls, if you believe the polls. which I've done multiple videos about why you should maybe second guess the polls at the very least, but they're what we've got. And so, I think it is important, and I know I've taken 5 full minutes to diatribe, and we've just been sitting here looking at Andrew Scheer's grinning face, but my point is it's all been worth it. Because the People's Party is a party that doesn't have baggage with regard to old alliances or allegiances. I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, etc., etc. I know I say that a lot too. It's all been worth it ultimately, no matter what the result of tonight is. And before I get going on this final Maxime Bernier Twitter roundup, I want to say thank you to Mr. Bernier and the whole team there for starting this, because without that spark, none of this happened. Without that spark, the Overton window on Canada closes, and all we talk about is how many more, and we don't solve problems, and inflation goes up, and deficit goes up, and spending goes up, and we can't solve problems. So thank you, Mr. Bernier, for having the courage to stand up to allow the conversation that needs to happen. Thank you. And with all of that intro, almost 7 minutes of intro, here we go, Maxime Bernier Twitter Roundup. And this is a retweet, but I think it's a worthwhile retweet. Bria Atkins. Bria is the motorhome, the PPC motorhome fame, and Bria drove me to the airport in Ottawa from the convention. So it was amazing. It was awesome. I love that I'm including her. And here we go. So Bria says, quote, "To my dear Canadians, we are better than this. So much better. In Beauce last night, Andrew Scheer is toasting with milk again. This is really what you want? An entire country's federal election controlled by 10% of the farmers in Canada? Enough," at Maxime Bernier at People's Party of Canada. And I'm not going to play this video because, we've watched enough of that. Here is Mr. Bernier, and he says, "Are you tired of the constant pandering? The PPC is the only party that campaigned on good policies that will benefit all Canadians. Without the PPC in Parliament, you will only have corrupt parties forever trying to buy your vote with your own money. You have a choice." Mr. Bernier continues at 10:24 a.m. yesterday. He says, "Canadian politics needs to be revamped. The PPC is the future. All the issues we raised won't disappear. They must be debated and addressed. None of the other parties will do it. Don't wait until the next election. Let's start the common sense revolution now." Here he is at 12:16 p.m. yesterday. He says, "Don't vote out of fear. Vote for your values. Vote for what you believe in." And he's got freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect. And I think those are good tenets to base any party on. Here's Mr. Bernier again at 3:03 p.m. on yesterday. He says, "Imagine how Canadian politics would be insipid and irrelevant without the People's Party of Canada. 5 centrist and leftist parties agreeing on almost everything. No debate on issues that matter to Canadians. You have a choice." At 9:22 a.m. this morning, Mr. Bernier said, "You can choose one of the morally and intellectually corrupt parties that spend the campaign buying votes and throwing mud at the others, or a party proposing sound policies based on freedom, responsibility, fairness, and respect. You have a choice." Josiah says, "Each election is said to be the most important of our lifetime, but this election is actually unique. For the first time in years, Canadians can vote to reject the corrupt political establishment and reject their consensus around the most important issues of our time." That was 8:33 p.m. yesterday. 6:54 p.m. yesterday, Mr. Bernier tweeted this out. "I'm so proud of our candidates. You showed incredible courage and passion in defending our principles and policies despite all the negativity of this campaign. You've already made Canada a better country. Thank you." And it had a lot of responses. I've liked this and retweeted this multiple times. So I think this is very interesting that it's not liked and retweeted here. And I also responded. But thank you, Mr. Bernier. As I said at the top, I think it's important to note, without you, none of this happens. So very important to note. Here's Mr. Bernier again, 9:32 this morning. He says, "I want to thank from the bottom of my heart the tens of thousands of supporters of the People's Party of Canada who set up our EDAs, worked with our candidates, donated, and helped get our message out on social media. Nothing we accomplished would have been possible without you." And that is true as well. And I'm going to give a shout out to my EDA because, my goodness, I can't believe the amount of volunteer time and hours and soles of shoes and doors knocked, etc., that my team has put in, but it is amazing and unbelievable. And I am humbled by my team. I am humbled by what's happened across Canada with all of the teams and the EDAs, because it has not been easy. It has been controversial. People's networks have a hard time when people are controversial. And so it's one thing to be a candidate. It's another thing to be supporting a party in this political climate. Again, this manufactured fake political climate. But still, they persevered. And that deserves a lot of recognition. So thank you. Thank you to my team, and thank you to all the EDAs across the country. And finally, this is the last tweet for this morning. And it is still this morning. Haha. Mr. Bernier says at 9:39 a.m., and also I want to thank our small but extraordinarily efficient team of staffers who have worked tirelessly for months to get this party ready for the election. Yes. I've met the team, or most of the team in Quebec, and they're wonderful people, and they're very nice people, and they work hard. And man, this has been a busy campaign. So everybody has worked hard all across the board, from candidates to leadership to EDAs and beyond. And so, wow, I say again, this is like Christmas and my birthday all wrapped up into one. And if you've ever been to like a weekend conference, you get close with those weekend conference people, and at the end they do all the speeches and everybody's like, you're the best. No, you're the best. But really, PPC guys, you're the best. From Greg Wycliffe for doing the parody videos, to Frank Vaughn for encouraging me to do this, to Kelly Day and Derek Rance and all the early YouTubers who helped me out. That's all part of this journey. And thank you to you for watching, because without you, this doesn't happen too. So get out and vote. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.